Hello and welcome to Paranormal Versus with myself, Kell Ridley, and my co-host, Michael Koff. And it's wonderful to have you back here again. Tonight we have special guest Heather Leigh Landon. She's a paranormal researcher, author, speaker, and co-host host herself on our podcasts. So I'd like to introduce her and give her a warm welcome to the show. So I'd like to welcome you, Heather.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Hiya. Can you just give a brief outline of what it is that you do and who you are and how you got into this?
Okay. Basically, I started getting into the paranormal field when I was 17. I started seeing my grandfather in our house and had no clue why he was there, because back in the 80s, the place was only haunted if the person died there. And he hadn't died there. He didn't even live in that house. We moved there long after he had passed. And so the more research I did, of course, I fell down that rabbit hole and just kept going. And even though I stayed behind the scenes for many years doing research and helping teams with their research of locations, I didn't really get active to where I went out and did, I guess you would say full time, because this is what I do full time between writing and co-hosting and everything, for about 5 or 6 years now. And just kind of, like I said, I do a lot of research. I've written 2 books right now with History Press that have just released. I have another one coming out later this year, and a long list of books that I'm writing with them. I do speaking engagements. I was at Phantasm last year here in Orlando. Have several other places that I'll be going to. A college tour is coming up as well. And my goal with this field is to kind of, I really want to make it a real science. I really don't like the fact that it's called a pseudoscience, but I get it. I completely understand why a lot of people call it that. So my ultimate goal is to help train people to have a better understanding of the paranormal, not to be afraid, and to kind of but encourage everybody to kind of think for themselves in this field. Just because someone does it X, Y, and Z, you can try X, Y, and Z, but it might not work for you. A, B, and C might work better for you.
Wow, that's amazing. So I just, sorry, Michael?
I was saying that's a good point. Yeah. Everybody's different.
Of course, yeah. Speaking about your qualifications and stuff like that, so what is a certified researcher and how do you become one?
Okay, well, I had attended Institute of Metaphysical and Humanistic Studies. It's based here out of Clearwater, Florida. Dr. Kelly's amazing. It's a secular school. It's tied to St. Francis University, I think, or St. Thomas University, one of the two. I can't remember the secondary school that he's tied to, but he has the metaphysical school where they do secular degrees. They teach everything from religious studies to life coaching. He has a paranormal track that you can go through, and with that, you take a whole bunch of courses, including there was 2 courses that were tied together for the Certified Paranormal Investigator. And that's just basically the Institute's way of saying this person has taken the class. We've validated that they understand everything that goes into being a paranormal investigator. And it's kind of just like backing up that, yes, we did take the thing. The same thing with the Certified EVP Technician. Several classes went into that. You study, you learn a whole bunch of different ways on how to analyze EVPs, traditional ways, unconventional ways, how to capture EVPs, how to encourage EVPs to come out. And that certification is just, again, basically the Institute's way of saying, yes, this person went through this. They have the extra training and the knowledge to conduct a thorough research and investigation.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
So I'm kind of curious, you mentioned a lot of the courses like you would take for the EVP. What would be some of the courses in the Paranormal Investigator track?
That one taught us everything. There was a course in there that was forensic studies. So we learned everything from how to seal off an investigation scene, even though, similar to a crime scene. How, and it even went into how to capture imprints of, like say Bigfoot's feet, in footprints. Then we also had how to preserve, chain of command. And everything, processes. And then it also went into client cases on how to talk to clients and how to, keep them calm and, help them from point A to point B. So that way they're not scared to be in their home anymore.
Okay, so it sounds like it was like you're becoming a detective. type classes. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty neat, isn't it? So getting into your paranormal stuff, so where's your favourite ghost town and why?
My favorite ghost town, Goldfield.
Goldfield.
And that one is mostly because I'd been there several times to investigate. We,
Right.
my family's my paranormal team, my husband and my son, and we were asked to do an investigation up in Goldfield for Real Haunts Ghost Towns, which came out 2 years ago. And it was a lot of fun. We went to the cemetery, the Goldfield Hotel, the high school. But prior to that, there's a mine there. And the mine's not operational anymore, but the owner opens it up for tours now and then. And we were the first paranormal team to go in. And we went in with a production crew because they wanted to film a pilot for a TV show. But of course, COVID hit and that got shelved. But being able to go down in the mine and actually conduct an investigation underground was such an amazing feeling that I absolutely fell in love with the town, the history. And it's such a cute town. If I could have afforded to live in the middle of nowhere, I would have loved to have lived there.
And for the people that's in the UK, whereabouts is that? What state is it in?
It's in Nevada. It's probably, I would say, about 3 hours north of Vegas.
Right. Brilliant. Michael?
So in reading your bio, you talk about, teaching courses in magic, and you have a paranormal team, I think, that you founded that's got magic based in it by the title, I'm guessing. So what type of magic do you bring on your investigations to help?
For me, I guess you would say I'm an eclectic witch. I pick and choose what works for me, which is I always tell everybody, even with the different life coaching courses that I do, do what works for you. So, but when it comes to an actual investigation, I did found with a friend of mine, the Witches Paranormal Society. And that's just more of our way of teaching the next generation of paranormal investigators on how to use witchcraft in their investigations. So when we go to investigations, I use everything from, the pendulums, I don't use the Ouija boards, not that I have anything against them because I use a pendulum board instead. For me, they're easier to transport. Dowsing rods. I use unconventional tools. I don't use, of course we have a spirit box, but you have that because if you host an event, the people want to hear what's going on. They don't want to have to wait till you send them the audio later. I use fidget spinners. I know that's not really witchcraft wise, but I love my fidget spinners on investigations. And it mostly is that we want to take an approach to help empower our clients. So if they, believe in themselves, and we can give them certain tools, like I'll give clients herbal bath bags, crystals. We'll cleanse the home. I'll help cleanse the home with cascarilla, and if they're Catholic, I have them follow behind me and I use the cascarilla first, then they follow behind me with the holy water. And it's all, when it comes to witchcraft and pagan, it's all about empowering the person to do it. And that's what I try to bring to every investigation.
Right. So just for clarification with everybody that's watching, because I know witchcraft has a tendency to everybody misnomer it to, they're doing spells and summonings. So you're not doing any of that part.
No, even though I know a lot of people who do that, that's not something I do because you never know what you're summoning. I view the different spells that you do more or less for empowerment. So, you're going to do a love spell, and it's not so much that the spell works, but the spell will work if you in your heart and mind believe it works.
Right. Okay. And so then we got a hello from the chat group. Valley Spirit Communication says hello from California. Hello. So when you're talking about using the magic and everything, and you mentioned spells for empowering, are there any spells of protection that you use for yourself and your teams?
Oh yeah, there's always, usually when I was on other teams, I was typically the odd man out, and of course they would do all their rituals and pray. And for me, it's more or less I just step outside, I barefoot, find a grassy area or even dirt if there's no grass in the area, and I just kind of self-meditate. for a while. Of course, you circle yourself with the white light. Then I'm always laughed at when I come home because I have crystals in my pockets. I have, everything from, of course, the crystal quartz, the black tourmaline, sandstone, a whole bunch of different things. And then I also have little packets of herbs, and rosemary, thyme, and marjoram are great protectors to have with you.
Excellent. So what kind of crystal is your favorite for protection on the investigations?
I actually use, it's a zebra stone, and it's a calming stone. And it's also, protecting, because once you calm yourself down, you have the power to protect yourself.
Brilliant. Excellent.
All right. Well, Scott Mathewson has a question for you. He says, do you think there comes a point where spirit comes to trust and remember you? We have been focusing on a particular location and feel we have turned that corner.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Just a quick story on that one. The one team that I was a part of back in Vegas, we investigated the same location every month. That was where we did our team meetings and we did our team trainings. And I had one time I woke up in the middle of the night to a black shadow standing at the foot of my bed, warning me not to go back to the location. And we were supposed to go back in 2 days. And while I was there, during the investigation, it was the worst investigation we ever had. We encountered several nasty spirits that were just being nasty, telling us to get out. We've had a couple investigators pushed during that investigation. But then after that, we never had that happen again. So I felt that spirit was coming to warn me. And then COVID hit and we weren't going back to the place. And the same spirit, it was almost like they were coming just to check on me. They were standing in the kitchen, looking over me. And once they saw I was okay, they disappeared.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, Kell, do you have a question?
No, I think it's your question again next.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so in your bio, you mentioned that you were the former chief administrative officer for the Warren Legacy Foundation. Mm-hmm. So what was that like?
In that position, I was in charge of helping keep the organization organized. I set up training opportunities for members to learn more about different aspects of the foundation and the paranormal. I helped set up interviews for the founder so he could help promote the foundation. I was working on setting up events because we're in the process of trying to set up an actual, not really a Paracon, but larger events than just your standard small events that you see popping up. And I did their social media promotion as well.
That's cool. So did you ever get to meet the Warrens at all?
Unfortunately, no. I joined the foundation after, I think it was about 6 months after Lorraine had passed.
Right. So what got you interested in haunted histories?
It was one of those, I've always researched it. I've always wanted to know the location. I was the type of person, when we go on vacations, like we'd go to Gettysburg, I'd be taking the haunted tours, and then I'd be going to their local bookstore and buying up all the history books based on the locations we went to. Because I want to know not only that the place is haunted, I want to know the history and what from that history could be causing the paranormal activity in the location.
Right. Wow.
So going along those lines of, because I understand that being history major background, that there's always stories in the background. Have you ever been say investigating Gettysburg and the history, but then it's like you're witnessing or you're experiencing something that goes, wait a minute, this isn't what the history says. And what do you do with that information?
You research more until you find something. Because one example is I was a photography student at the time in college. This was back when I was 20. And I was shooting a whole bunch of photos at Devil's Den. And we were there the weekend, I think it was 4th of July weekend. So they were doing a reenactment at Gettysburg for that weekend. And all of a sudden around the boulder, one of the boulders, comes a Confederate soldier. And he walks by me, tips his hat, and goes around the other corner of the boulder. I'm like, I need to get this guy's photograph. So I started chasing after him. And when I turned the corner, he was gone.
Wow.
And I searched everywhere and I would have seen him running away. And all the places that he would have ducked into, he would have still been there because there was no other way out. So he was just gone. And it was one of those things where it was like, that kind of piqued my interest because I didn't know too much about the Devil's Den area at that time. I just knew it was a major part of the battle. And it wasn't until recently, because I just kept researching it. Recently, there was an article that was published, and I wish I could remember who published it, but it had talked about it was the Confederate, Mark Brady's, I was trying to remember Matthew Brady's photo of the Confederate sniper that was shot there. And it came out that they had found records that Matthew Brady's assistant had left records behind, that he actually was instructed by Brady to get a body and stage that scene. So that body was never there. The sniper never really died there. And the body they showed two photos side by side. The body is actually seen on the battlefield 70 yards away and at Devil's Den. And the more I researched it, and they finally figured out who the person was, the body that was there. And it just looks like the guy I remember seeing.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you also were part of a lot of projects. In your bio, you listed, I think there was like 3 or 4 of them. So what was, or is, if you're still a part of them, your favorite project to be a part of?
Oh, any of them. It's like picking your favorite child. I do have to say that I really enjoyed Touch of Magick. I haven't done any videos for them lately, but what I really liked about that is there was a whole bunch of us, and throughout the country, that got together, and we would just create little 8-minute videos that, like I talked about, different herbs and the different benefits and how to use them. So it was kind of, I had fun with that. But the biggest things that I really enjoy are my writing projects, like the 2 books that just came out. One came out last fall and one just came out last week. And then I have the other one that goes off to the publisher tomorrow. And
can you list the projects that you were a part of? Because I feel like we're mentioning stuff from your bio, but people will be like, well, but we don't see her bio. So can you share some of those so that
let me know if I forget anything. No. Of course, you have it's the Real Haunts Ghost Towns with motion picture video, and then Real Haunts 3 just came out earlier this year. Both are available free on Tubi. We were filmed by the production company. Great, amazing people. They also filmed in Real Haunts 3 4 other teams across the country, where Real Haunts Ghost Towns was just my team. And then iMystic University, I'm in the process. All my courses have just come down because I'm in the process of updating and revamping them, but hopefully by the end of March, they'll be back up. And with iMystic University, it's everything from my friend Marissa, who's known as the Sin City Witch. She teaches everything from Witchcraft 101. There's a crystal class on there. There's a Reiki class on there you can take to learn more about Reiki. And she has me there to teach the paranormal, and then also to teach how to use witchcraft with the paranormal. Of course, Touch of Magick, which is also run by the Sin City Witch, and Witches Paranormal. I partnered with her. We've done a few things on that, but she's had some issues, so we've put that temporarily on hold, but that hopefully will be back. I'm trying to think. I also co-host Ghost Education 101 with Philip Wyatt. We've been doing that since COVID started. It's a 2-hour show every other Wednesday night on Parallax. You could also find it at Ghost Education 101 on Facebook. And that one, we do a whole bunch of different things. Like last night, we had a presentation from the Haunted Librarian. She showed different slides based on haunted crime scenes and talked about the different history behind those crime scenes. Next week, we're doing a panel discussion on para-unity and team conduct. We also do where we just interview different people on the show. And it's basically just an open forum where we talk about all things paranormal in the hopes of being able to get correct information out to the people, because there's so much false information out there. And again, we always tell people, believe what you want, but here's the information that we believe is true. And we pass that on to everybody. And then I also started hosting a show last fall on WLTK-DB Radio, Exploring the Paranormal. It's every Tuesday morning from 10 a.m. to noon. And on there, I have guests where we talk about everything from the science and the paranormal to, metaphysical approaches, everything from, I have witches on there, I have Catholic priests on there, and I just basically try to interview anybody who's part of the paranormal on that show.
Wow, and I thought 2 podcasts a month was too much. How do you find time to do all of that?
Don't ask. Like I said, I do this full time.
Wow. That's amazing. We've got a question in the chat. Scott Mathewson says, is there anywhere in Scotland you'd like to visit or investigate? And this is for the whole panel. So we'll ask you that first, Heather.
And it would be Scotland or Ireland, either one, is my dad had always talked about how he wanted to go pub to pub riding a bike and grab a beer at every pub. I would love to do the same thing, but conduct an investigation at every pub as I go.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I think that's just like a normal Friday night in England.
Right.
Wow. Michael?
For me to visit, I would say the Highlands of Scotland, and maybe, oh man, I'm so gonna get dogged for this. I can't. Inverness. I couldn't remember the name of the city, but Inverness. And the Circle of Stones at those. I don't think they're actually in Inverness. I think it's actually in another location.
Are you talking about off Outlander? They're not actually there. No, they were built. They're not actually there. They don't exist.
I think they actually exist in another spot. I think I found they were.
No, I think they were actually built. When I looked into it a while ago, because I wanted to go and see them, and it says they don't exist. They were just actually made for the film, the program. I could be wrong, but that's what I read anyway.
See, this is what we're talking about. False truths.
Yeah, exactly.
But to investigate, I would say the tunnels under Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, it would have to be definitely Edinburgh, or Culloden Battlefield. I would like to go investigate there as well.
Definitely Culloden.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
You said obviously you into witchcraft, Heather. Well, obviously into witchcraft. You're a witch. So what kind of witchcraft do you do? Because these days there's that many. There's like obviously kitchen witch, green witch, a paganism. What kind would you class yourself as?
If I had to categorize it, I would say it's more of a combination of kitchen and green, because I love the herbs, and I love, of course, I come up with a whole bunch of different brews to do on the stove to make the house smell good, or to put intentions out there in the air. So those would be the two closest, but I still do as much research and much learning from anybody I can. Mm-hmm. And if something I think would work for me, that's something that I would start using.
Right. Cool. Michael, any more questions?
One that's kind of piqued my interest that I'm glad I get a chance to ask is, what is self-possession, and how do you describe and know when that's happening?
I'm hoping to finish a book on that soon. But I truly wholeheartedly believe in the power of self-possession. And with that aspect is, I always try to figure out how to word it so I don't offend anybody. But it's one of those things where if you are truly self-possessed in the aspect of you wholeheartedly believe in yourself, you believe in your powers, you believe in your abilities, just believe in anything you can do, nothing else can possess and overtake you. I know it's probably not the best analogy, but you're looking at, let's say, if you have any self-doubt or any, self-questioning, you leave yourself open to be picked on, ridiculed. And I'm not blaming the victim at all. I want to try to, of course we need to stop the bullies out there, but if you're fully confident in your skills and yourself, you're less likely to be harassed, because the people that do look for that harassment and to cause the problems look for those who are weaker. And I know that's bad to say. And like I said, I'm not meaning to offend anybody with that, but that's the best analogy I can come up with. And it goes the same way with paranormal. The spirits and the demons look for the weakest person. Of course, they try to take out the most strong person, but they look for the weakest person mentally. to try to take over and to cause harm to.
Well, I'm glad I asked, because I was thinking along the lines of going into trance state.
Oh, no.
So, okay. So, where have you investigated?
Oh, most of my actual investigations were out in the Vegas area. Of course, we did a cute little museum. I fell in love with it. It's called McCaw School of Mines. And we also featured them in Real Hunts Ghost Towns if anyone ever wants to see what this little place looks like. And I volunteered there. And it's an above ground simulated mine. And it's once you walk through that front cave entrance, you feel like you're underground, even though you're still above ground. It was created by the guy who did the Indiana Jones shows and exhibitions at Disney. And then they also have a whole bunch of mining equipment throughout the area. You feel like they have, they have a car from Area 51 there, which we had high EMF readings on that one. But then you go to the second car in the train and there's no EMF readings. It's just flatlined. So very, very interesting place. And one day I said, hey, let's, see if you have any ghosts after I got done volunteering. And they did. So that's one of my favorite places. I had been trying to think. I did several residentials out there, a couple museums, but unfortunately I can't name them due to non-disclosure agreements that we had to sign before that. Up in Goldfield, you have the Goldfield Hotel, the Florence Mine, the Goldfield Emporium when it was still open, the cemetery in Goldfield. And that is it for Goldfield. And then I went to Gold Point and we did an investigation inside the bar as well as by the Hangman's Noose in the middle of the street. And in Nelson, Nevada, we went down into an abandoned mine shaft there as well.
Oh.
Have you done any investigations international?
No, but I did when we went to Puerto Vallarta. There was this cute little church. And when I went into the church, I took a whole bunch of photos and I definitely was not alone.
Wow.
Wow.
So, what's your scariest investigation that you've encountered that you've ever had?
I would say one would be a residential because it was the first time that I had ever been physically harmed.
Wow.
I always knew that there were stories that, ghosts could harm you, but we actually had done the whole investigation. Earlier in the investigation, the partner that I was with in one of the rooms, he all of a sudden lost time. His face went blank and his eyes turned black. And I was like, oh crap. So I'm in my head counting down from 30. And I'm like, if he doesn't snap out of this, I'm getting him out of here. But he snapped out of it. And he's like, what happened? He had no idea where he was anymore. He completely lost it. And then later that night when I was doing a quick cleansing of the home, she had this big bay window over her garden tub. And I was, doing some cleansing around that window and something swept my feet out from underneath me, almost like a karate swipe. Wow. And I flew up in the air, landed on my knees and it scared me. But the mother in me, I instantly stood up and started yelling at it. I'm like, we don't do that. That's not how we treat people. And after I did that, the house got brighter. And it was just very interesting. And then the only other time that I was actually really scared was I was at the Florence mine. We investigated a collapsed section of the mine. And something told me to go all the way back to where the rubble was. And crawling on my hands and knees, getting all the way back there, started an EVP session, but I couldn't continue. I started crying. I felt like I was being crushed. I couldn't breathe. I started hearing men screaming, cries. And then it was like, I felt like I was being crushed under the rubble. Luckily, because we were there with a documentary crew, they followed and one of the guys followed and he got me out of there. And once I was 5 feet away from that collapsed area, I was perfectly fine. It was like nothing happened. But while I was back there, I thought I was dying.
Have you been back?
No, we haven't had a chance to go back there yet. We're hoping.
Okay. Well, Scott in Scotland has another question for you, which I think is actually a good one. In America, do you find the more hype a location has, the less activity there is?
Yeah, I would say it's not so much the hype. I would say the more it's investigated. There's a lot of locations that I know there was one location that we went to that was investigated like by every team in town, and there was no activity. And I truly do think that sometimes at this point in time, the spirits are like, oh crap, here comes another team. And they just don't want to participate anymore.
Yeah, and they're probably like, they're going to ask us the same questions.
Who are you?
So, do you see a difference between ghosts and spirits?
Yes and no. I mean, there's still, there were once people too. And I know there's a whole bunch of different definitions on, a ghost is a ghost that's stuck here, and a spirit is someone that's crossed over and has returned. I mean, I'm not one big on labels. It's, it's not a living person anymore, is how I view it. And other than that, I don't see a difference whether they've crossed over or they're stuck here.
Cool.
So Nicola has a question for you. Actually, for all of us, is what sets you apart from other investigators? Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go first, Heather?
I was going to say, who wants to go? I can go first. I would say two different things. One is, well, I guess you could say three, and I'll make them as quick as possible. The first one is I don't hide any of my evidence or anything I get. Unless I sign a non-disclosure agreement, I'm open. I'll share it. I'm willing to train other investigators. I'm really willing to mentor. I'm not a evidence hoarder, I guess you would say. It's like, no, you can't see my evidence. And I'm always willing to help people, find the next place to investigate. I also, when I'm actually on the investigation, I like to open it up by telling the spirit, hey, I'm here to talk to you. Do you have any questions for me before we get talking? I would love you to know me better. And then I just go sit in the corner of the room for about 15, 20 minutes with a digital voice recorder running, just in case anyone, wants to talk from the other side. More or less, that's my way of getting them to open up to me, or to understand that, they can ask me questions too. And I guess it was only two because I lost track of my third one.
Cool. Michael?
All right. Oh, I was going to say, Kell, you can take it.
No, I'll let you.
So I would say one of the things that sets me apart is I go at it having fun and professional at the same time. And so, and another part is I grew up in the metaphysical side, not really the dogmatic. So I'm more open and aware of things, and so I bring that as well. And I'm becoming more open and public about that, because growing up in the Bible Belt, that was something that you didn't discuss. So I'm slowly working that back in and becoming more public. And it's harder too, because when I can say I can sense a spirit's here, I can feel it, sense it, but then everybody says on every camera or every piece of equipment says, no, there's nothing here. It's like, I know there's something here. I can't prove it in that aspect, but I know. And so that's part of the other fun of what I bring, is because it's like, yeah, I get to challenge the equipment a little bit. Excellent. And having a history background, that kind of helps.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say about me. It's I'm a historical researcher, so that is my forte. I always delve into places where some people can't do. And like I say, when it comes to the history of the paranormal, I look into everything. Mm-hmm. And I do have some experiments on that my team have that nobody else has, that were obviously invented by Drew Bartley. So like I say, that's the only thing I can think of that sets me apart at the moment. But
all right, let's see. Scott's just, I think, making a comment. Or
Yeah.
oh no, he does have a question in there.
Oh.
No worries about all the questions, Scott. We appreciate it. It says over here we have lots of teams that just label everything paranormal rather than try debunking. What's the panel's thoughts on this? He's just
Heather?
inquisitive.
Yeah, I think that comes from the fact that if you're helping clients, they automatically call you and say you have I need help. I have a demon, and it's like, well, if you're saying you have a demon, chances are you don't. And there's so many teams out there that are still in the learning process, because there's been in the last 2 years a boom in the number of teams that are out there. And I think that a lot of them are learning from TV shows, and nothing against the TV shows. They're a great place to get some basic information. But, people don't realize that these shows film for 2 to 3 weeks to get 30 minutes worth of evidence. So they're also over eager. I think that those who wholeheartedly believe in the paranormal with no skepticism whatsoever are almost as bad as someone who's 100% skeptical and there's no way there's paranormal, because they go in wanting paranormal activity to happen so bad that 9 times out of 10 they might self-manifest it.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say I like to try and debunk it, because to me, if I can't debunk it, that makes it more even relevant and more like, wow, this really is paranormal. So it's like, to me, it's the other side of the coin of it eliminates all doubt and questioning in myself. Did I really catch this? Because if I can't duplicate it, then that's definitely something caught. And so, and another thing that I like to think about when I'm going into things is like whenever somebody feels like something like low or they call bad energy, it could just be a spirit just not happy with what's going on. But when everyone starts calling it a demon, let's look at I like to say, look at society. If we call somebody that doesn't quite grasp something stupid over and over, they start to think of themselves as stupid. Well, spirits, I feel, are the same way. If we come in and we're constantly saying, oh my gosh, you're giving off a bad energy, you're a demon, they're going to start acting like it, because that's what we're calling them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just getting fed up with saying, no, I'm not. And so that's the other reason why I'm not saying, don't attack me for saying demons aren't out there, because I'm sure they are. I just feel there are several times where it may be misidentified. It may just be like, for an example is there's a spirit at Old Park Hotel that's of a lawman turned outlaw who was a brutal killer. And I'm sure that energy carries over into the next, part of his journey. And so, yeah, we may think of it as demonic, but that's just his nature. And so we're misidentifying. So that's my take on that part.
Yeah. With me, the team that I was in a few years ago, with Drew Bartley in it, we were all members of the SPR, the Society of Psychical Research. So they do tell you to debunk everything and have evidence, like scientific evidence on everything. Check, like, obviously, if the door opens, make sure it's not air pressure and obviously stuff like that. So we were taught we had to debunk everything. So it's like there was a video was sent to us a few years ago when I was on a different team, and basically there was what looked like a spirit pushing the gate shut, but when you look at it properly, it was just the wind caught a vent that came out of the heating system, and there was a puff of like mist came out, and basically the wind pushed her along, and the woman was adamant that that was paranormal, but obviously it wasn't. So, like I say, I tend to debunk as much as I can. As possible, anyway.
All right. Well, Nicola has another question. I don't know if it's for everyone or just for you, Heather, but it's your thoughts on the UFO I'm assuming paranormal connection.
That's interesting because in Vegas, we were 2.5 hours from Area 51. So it was always a hot topic out there, especially with the Nevada Triangle, similar to the Bermuda Triangle. And I'm torn on it. I do believe that we have had visitors from another realm, whether it's out in space or they've managed to manifest some type of portal where they can come into our world. And so it's one of those things where I do think they are connected, because if they are using a portal, they might be something we see as a ghost when in fact they're an alien. And that might explain why we don't always interact with the same ghost, because it's different aliens coming through that portal onto Earth.
All right. I agree with that. And Nicola corrected and said it's for all of us. So, Kell?
I totally agree. Basically, I mean, what we perceive as being aliens, it could be the same, like I say, ghosts, could be them. It's like there's some, I would say, ghosts that could come through portals. You see, like shadow figures and stuff like that. 1 minute they're there, and 1 minute they're not. So where do they go to? You know what I mean? It could be like obviously a different dimension. Aliens as well. The way I see it is they come through different dimensions. They don't necessarily come through like thousands and millions of light years away. They use wormholes. They could be like here in a different plane. It sounds stupid, I know. But that's the way I see it. So, yeah. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I chose to go last because this is a hot topic of mine that I love to talk about. So when people talk about paranormal, they always assume it's spirits and ghost hunting. That's it. But the paranormal field actually is spirits, ghosts, ufology, cryptids, interdimensional, portals, beings. It's a whole host of things. And I think that one of the things that goes on in the field is the disservice is everyone gets focused into one niche and forgets the rest. And so if it's not in their repertoire of what they're investigating, they discount it. And I think an example of that is when I went on a sky watching investigation, which turned out to be paranormal as well. And sky watching is you're looking in the sky for UFOs. That I had a quartz crystal appear out of thin air, fall right behind me. And so the owner said that the spirits or the beings there wanted me to have that crystal. So that's why it was a gift for me. And a lot of people that I talked in the paranormal field are like, oh, that's just weird. Or that sounds cool. And then they'll be like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, that's a legit paranormal experience. Mm-hmm. But because there's no ghost or spirits attached to it, they're like, no, that's not really paranormal. I'm like, yeah, it is. So that's why I always say this is like a hot deal for me. Is I kind of get on a soapboxes because I feel like we always assume it's just a small portion and there's a whole bigger picture that everyone doesn't think about. And I feel like we really need to start bridging more.
Yeah. It's like the link to people try and say, well, people are saying there's a link to the UFOs and Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
So,
talking about that, I firmly believe that because of the fact we can get their footprints. We can catch them in blurred images, in which case I view that as they're entering their portal back to their home. And I was discussing this actually on my other show on Tuesday night, shameless plug. And but I was like,
Terrible.
if we think about it, if they are interdimensional creatures and they're coming here, I'm like, if they're on vacation, coming here to this world to vacation, I would be seriously getting a new travel agent because it's not the safest place to go, and vacation right now. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. They got to be interdimensional or live in center of the earth, because that's why there's no traces of their home or like a nesting area, that we only ever see footprints or like debris of where they've been. That's my take.
Yeah.
All right.
Have you got any more questions there?
Actually, Scout has one for Heather. So you and I get to take a break, Kel.
Yay.
Oh, my answer won't be long.
It says, Heather, have you ever visited the historic Scotts County Jail? I watched a program on it, found it really interesting.
Yeah, I have not been to that one yet.
Oh, well, that was really short.
Like I said, really short. Unfortunately, I haven't been there.
Can you tell us a little bit about what he's referring to, or?
To be honest, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I'm actually going to be adding that to my research list now.
Well, actually, our show Paranormal Versus that Kell came up with is based on UK versus USA, like paranormal styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in your bio that you talk about working with teams in the US and teams international. What differences do you find in how the teams operate and investigate?
The one biggest difference I found is equipment is different. I know a lot of more of the international investigators that I've talked to, they use more old school equipment, non-tech tools. They're not into the latest and greatest gadget. And also some countries such as Spain, they have actual certifications that you have to get if you're going to do client cases. So, and in some countries, paranormal investigations are more regulated, where in the US, it seems like it's a free-for-all.
Okay. Oh, well, Scott did some work for you. He said it's an old jailhouse where the jailer and his family lived as well. He is said to still be there.
I'm going to definitely be putting that on my list. And of course, I don't have a pen nearby. Go figure.
Oh, I'm sure it'll come up again.
Oh, yeah.
But so one thing Kell and I were trying to figure out that you mentioned is Paranexus. Mm-hmm. What is Paranexus and what can you share about it?
That is basically from Dr. Kelly set that up for all of his graduates from his degree program. And it's where we can all gather. We share ideas. He has all of the different forms that you can use for different types of investigations. We have access to those, so we don't have to save them on our computers if we don't want to. And it's a great place because you have people who graduated his program 20 years ago versus people who are just now graduating the program. So you have a whole bunch of different perspectives on the paranormal. And what I like about it is different people who are doing active research studies will throw out a theory. And they'll be like, what's your thoughts on this theory? And everyone can help do the experiments on their own, separate. And then we all come together and share those experiments and our results with each other and see who came up with what. So it's a great place to help advance the field scientifically.
Wow.
That sounds pretty cool. And
yeah.
Sounds like we got to take a course to get a part of that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's opened it up publicly or not, but it's everybody in there that I've seen, I know has gone through his program and has graduated.
Wow. That's really cool that he does that. So you mentioned that you have two teams, the Exploration Paranormal and co-founded the Witches Paranormal, or is it Witches Paranormal Society, did you
Yeah,
say?
Witches Paranormal Society.
So what drew you to finding those and co-founding?
Well, for the Witches Paranormal Society, that's a faster answer. I'll start there. My friend, like I said, the Sin City Witch, she had done several investigations with me. We helped with we put together the Las Vegas Pride, or the Las Vegas Pagan Pride Festival out in Las Vegas, but it was canceled due to COVID. But her and I were on the committee to work that. And we just got chatting back and forth. And she's like, we do all this witchcraft stuff. And she goes, I know you're into the paranormal. She's like, why don't we do this? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. But then shortly after we set it up, I moved to Florida and she had some issues that she had to take a break from the field for a while. And we're actually just back into talking about getting that going again. And for my team, what ended up happening is the team I was on, I still talk to a lot of the members, but there were some issues. Once it came out that I was a witch, because I usually kept that to myself, and a lot of the team members shunned me. A lot of team members didn't want to investigate with me anymore, or at least it felt like that because they just never showed up whenever I was going to be there. And then I also didn't like their methods of investigating. So I left and I was just kind of doing it on my own. And my husband said to me, he's like, you really can't be going to clients' homes alone. Don't go investigate alone. You're not safe. So he started investigating with me, and my son was always interested, and he started joining us. So we decided to create our own family team, and it was just the three of us.
So how long has it been investigating with your family?
3 years.
So what is that like? Is your son ever like, no, Mom, I don't want to do this?
Oh,
why
no.
are you making me do this at this?
No,
location?
I've always asked him, hey, we're going to go do this. Do you want to go with? And he's like, sure.
That's cool.
So he's always open for it.
So what do you think it is about you being a witch that people don't seem to like?
The term witch, people are afraid of it because they think it's all dark magic and, conjuring and all of that stuff. And it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you teach paranormal. What is that like? Like, what's your style of teaching it? How do you teach it?
Well, of course, I always have different slideshows based on whatever topic they want it. If I do in-person teaching, if it's online classes, sort of the same, but just a little bit different based on the platform we're doing it on. But I always open up, of course, I talk about myself. I want to get to know the people that are taking the class a little bit better, ask them, what their experiences are. Do they believe in the paranormal? Do they not believe in the paranormal? And I just I try to give it an approach where I teach a little, and then I give examples that fit into that. And then I get the class involved, asking them if they have any, experiences similar to that, if they have any questions. If it's equipment training, I actually give them the equipment so they can have hands-on training. And then once that classroom is done, then that's when we do an investigation. So that way they can practice what they've learned.
That's cool. I'm trying to see if this is a question Scott's making or a comment, but I'll put it up because it's in all caps. It says, I found we get more results with basic stuff, no tech. Our thoughts are it's because spirit either don't understand tech, so therefore don't go near it, or they just don't care what you use. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nicola, we kind of covered that earlier, but I'll ask it and we'll get Heather to take to see. She's asking, how does witchcraft aid investigations?
It basically, the way I use it is to help empower the clients. You give them the power to understand that there's nothing to be afraid of. And then also just different, my investigative tools include pendulum boards, pendulums, dowsing rods, all the basic techniques. And then, of course, the protection aspect of it comes from herbs and crystals. And, of course, the power of believing in yourself.
So the last question I came up with, I'm sure you get asked all the time, is: are there any locations you wish you could investigate?
I do. I've visited Williamsburg several times, but I never investigated there. So I would just love, anywhere in Williamsburg or Charleston are some of my favorite places to investigate, or that I want to investigate. They're my favorite places to visit, but I just want to get there and actually do an investigation.
Right. And so I came up with, because I know you get asked this a lot, a twist to the question that you probably don't get asked a lot. Are there any locations that are calling or drawing you to them that you want to investigate?
I would say there's two. One is the Sydney Opera House. I've always been interested in Australia, and just the history. I would just love to get into that building. And I think it might be more or less just a fascination with it, but it could be something calling me to do it. But there's a small fishing village, probably about an hour from where I live. It's called John's Pass at near Treasure Island. And it has such a history. It has everything from Confederate soldiers have been spotted there, pirates. And it's just this cute, it's a cute little town, and we go and visit that often. And I think it's because when I'm there, I feel like I'm home. Something just feels comfortable. And I haven't investigated there yet just because there's no locations that do investigations out there. But, keep your fingers crossed. I've been reaching out to several people out there in the hopes of doing some type of ghost tour.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. I'm just laughing because my two dogs just heard somebody's dog bark. Yeah, they ran outside and they're like desperately hunting where this bark came from.
Yeah. What I was going to ask you, Heather, is obviously, do you believe in past lives and stuff like that?
I do. And even though I haven't dug deep into it yet, I do personally believe that my past life would have been the Civil War era.
Right.
Because I have a big fascination with that. And I was born in Virginia, love everything to do with the Civil War. And I know that sounds tragic because it was such a horrific event that happened here in the US. But, everything from Gettysburg, Williamsburg, Harrisburg, Atlanta. And one of the things that I'm writing my next book after I finish this one I'm doing is Haunted Civil War Sites of Florida. Wow. And just digging into the research of that and how active Florida was in the Civil War. And I do believe that my fascination has to be connected. And I've had several dreams of myself living in that time frame.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you talk about Florida with the Civil War, because studying it, I don't recall really any mention of any battles or major conflicts during the Civil War in Florida. I'm like, I know Georgia, then they went to the Carolinas, and there was Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, I think, had a couple, but it's like Florida is like, everyone kind of forgets they were part of the CSA, and nobody really thinks about them. And it's interesting because, I'm sure there were, but
Yeah, the book I just finished is, or will be finishing tomorrow, I'm editing it tonight, is Haunted Florida Lighthouses. And that's what got me the idea for the other book, because like Key West was actually a major point in the Civil War, because the Confederates was trying to prevent the Union Navy from taking it over. And they actually lost it to the Union. So the Florida Keys were part of the Union during all of that. And then Tampa Bay was the site of several battles because they were trying to come in through Tampa Bay. And even though they had removed all the lights from the lighthouses throughout Florida during that time, there was still several battles trying to keep them away from making it on the shore.
Yeah. And not to steal a phrase from my friends in the UK, but that's pretty cheeky to take the lights out of the lighthouses.
They did.
But so I know you're not really an expert on, or I don't think anybody's really an expert in the paranormal, but with your background, if say I was to say to you, I went to Vicksburg and I could see in front of me like a video of watching soldiers moving. I could smell the gunpowder. I could smell the blood. It's like I could see the whole battle unfolding right before my eyes, as if I was immersed in it. Would you call that a past life experience?
It could be. But if you're actually on the street, it could be one of two things. Just when you were sharing the story, it was I was thinking it could either be residual energy that you're picking up on and you're very sensitive to the land and surroundings around you, or it could be a time slip to where you actually slip back in time. Because I know there was one of the University of Gettysburg or Gettysburg College, they have a building and several students who have gone into the basement. When the doors open from the elevator, they are met with a horrific scene of a Civil War hospital. And they said they could hear the men screaming and see blood, smell blood. And then when they close the doors, go back upstairs to get someone to come downstairs, they go back downstairs and it would be just a storage room. And that has been referred to as a time slip.
Interesting.
I like the thought of that. I can travel through time. That's pretty cool. I never thought about it as a time slip, but it could be. It was more like a memory, and that's why I was curious. But so we've reached our hour point, and we do have one question if you want to take it on and then finish, or do you need to go?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Kell, how about you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well, Scott says, do you think spirit miss contact in locations that don't get investigated often, or in places where they have got to know you?
I think so. I truly do. Like the one story I shared earlier where the spirit came to our house, but then also Gold Point. I had mentioned that we investigated there. And this, it's on, I'm trying to remember, it's between Vegas and Goldfield, but it's still a good 2.5 to 3 hours away from Vegas, because once you get off the main highway, it's an hour road down a one-way dirt road to get to Gold Point. And we decided to set up and do a spirit box session underneath the Hangman's Noose. And we were expecting to get, cries and wails and, a whole bunch of things related to the actual artifact. But instead, we had several different voices, male and female. Hello, hi, hello, how are you? Hi. And it was like they just kind of flocked to us. And we're like, ooh, somebody's here and wants to talk to us. So I do feel as long as it's not over investigated, and as many times as he gets guests out there that actually want to do investigations, they've probably had that taste of what it's like to talk to somebody after being isolated, and then it could go months before someone else comes out to talk to them.
Interesting.
So, interesting question, because you talk about over investigation. What is a good number for teams, do you think, to work with that they should, in your opinion, have like member wise, like 4, 10, 15?
I think it all depends on what your plan is as a team. If you're planning on just doing locations, like if you're going to go to old jails and, cemeteries and just do the research, you can have as many as you want, however many you feel could do the research. If you're planning on helping clients, you want to make sure that, I would say, anywhere from 6 to 8, because you want to make sure that you have enough for 2 teams to go investigate if you have 2 clients at the same time. But for us, I mean, it's just the 3 of us, and we're quite happy. I always joke that I know they're trained right, so I know who I'm working with because I train them.
Yeah.
and they have no input elsewhere because they weren't on other teams before I started training them.
Cool. Any other questions, Michael?
I actually asked all that I came up with.
I know I've let you do all the work tonight. Just sat here and being quiet, as usual. That's all really I can think about to ask. One thing is, do you think ghosts fade over time?
That's a theory that I've been trying to figure out, because it goes back to, I know some people have seen different things, but why don't we see ghosts of cavemen? Why don't we see ghosts of dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Why are most of the spirits that we see from the 17th and 18th century? How come there's not, I mean, and I know some people have seen Roman soldiers, and stuff like that, but it's not as often.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are we not seeing, similar to a VHS tape or a cassette player? If you play your favorite song over and over and over, eventually that song's going to start losing quality.
Yeah. It's like the way we see it is that basically you've got a ghost who's technically called the White Lady or something like that. There's nothing to say that years ago that she wasn't the Red Lady. Like a dress might have faded over time. Like every time you keep seeing her. And...
Yep.
Or she could have changed clothes.
Possibly.
Yeah, that's what I want to learn, is how do spirits determine what they're wearing?
Is it not what they're dying?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't think so, because...
Or what they were happy with.
When you think about it, I know of a few mediums that when they say they channel or doing their trance state, that they see the individual in like clothes. They may have died in their 80s, but they see him as a teenager or a young adult. And so I kind of feel like they choose how they want to appear. And I think they look at who their audience is and say, how will these people know me? If this person was to describe me, how would they automatically know? And if you go to somebody who only knew him in their 80s and go, oh, well, he's wearing jeans, rolled up sleeves like he's in the 50s. And they're like, I don't have a clue. I've never seen anybody like that. But then they go, well, he's in this like checkered shirt and jeans. He's like, oh, that's like my grandfather. And
well, if you think about it, like it couldn't really be what they're dying, because the amount of people that must have died naked, and you never really see a naked ghost here. So
no, I don't think they care what they're buried in, to be honest. I think that's more for us. We want them to look nice going into the ground.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, let's be honest. You know people who you always seen them in like tattered t-shirts, torn jeans. You go to their funeral and they're like in a suit. It's like, how is this what this person would have picked to be buried in?
Right, any more questions? Sorry.
I don't have any more questions offhand.
No, neither do I. And we've gone over a little bit anyway, so...
well, actually, one question, Heather, is how can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Facebook. I'm at Dr. Heather Leigh. Or you can, my team at Exploration Paranormal. You can also find me at Exploring the Paranormal Show to get access to my Tuesday show, or Ghost Education 101. And then we also have our website, which is explorationparanormal.com or heatherleighphd.com.
Excellent.
And you mentioned you're on the Paralinks network, right?
Yes.
So are we.
For Ghost Ed. Yeah, we just Ghost Education. We aired last night. So.
Brilliant. Right. Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Heather, for coming on. It's been very interesting, and like I say, I would like to find out a little bit more about you, if that's okay.
Feel free to reach out anytime.
No problem. And I want to thank Michael for asking all the questions tonight.
You're welcome.
Second week in a row.
Hey, it's good practice for me.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everybody that's been watching also. If anybody has any questions, they can either get in touch with myself or Michael or directly with Heather herself. But thank you very much. Who we got on next time? Can you remember, Michael?
Next week, or not next week, in a couple of weeks, we will be with Kenneth Torres.
Ooh,
Kenneth
I love
Torres.
Kenneth.
Brilliant.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So,
any dirt you want to spill?
Off the air.
ooh. So, I just want to, like I say, thanks to everybody who's asked questions, and especially Scott. Me and Scott's going to be doing another podcast about history, so I just plug that when he's feeling a bit better anyway. So, it's been a brilliant show anyway. So I just want to thank everybody. And Michael, have you got anything that you want to add?
I just want to thank everyone that was in the chat group, and and for all the questions, and thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kell, for allowing me to co-host with you yet again.
You mean for letting you do all the work again?
I prefer the term co-host.
Okay. We call it you're lucky in the UK. You're me lucky. I'm me gopher. I'm joking. We love you, really.
I love you too.
Do you want to close up then, Michael?
All right. Well, I would say thank you to everybody. It's been a fun show. It's been a great time. So if you're going to be investigating this weekend, have fun, be safe, and remember to always catch and review what you document. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.